You had 14 counts of armed robbery and an assault on an officer that you said never took place. This was when you ran from the West LA station.
Yeah. So they're like, all right, well, the best deal we can give you now is 12 years, 8 months, but you have to take 2 strikes. So that's what I did.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we have the one and only out of the west side of LA, Slot 1, the Servant.
Yes, sir. Peace, everybody.
Tell us a little bit about your inception, the start. Where were you born?
I was born in Inglewood, Centinela Hospital, right across from was that SoFi Stadium now? I'm born in Inglewood, lived there off of like La Brea and Arborvitae, or Spruce and La Brea as a kid. I lived all over the place actually in California. I've lived in, I went to like first, second grade in San Bernardino, Highland of all places, and then moved back out to like Gardena area, and then slowly made myself back to like the westside area, middle school and all that. But I also lived in El Salvador for 3 years as a kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So why did you move around so much as a kid?
My parents got divorced when I was like 4 or 5. So like, my dad went to like the IE San Bernardino area, so I went to go live with him for a few years, and then I would go live with my mom. So I would go like back and forth. And then finally we were just like, my brother and sister ended up with my mom when the divorce happened, and I ended up with my dad. So then they lived out here in LA, I lived out in the IE. And then when I was like 9, we all got together and we just all moved to El Salvador and lived there for like 3 years. Like I was like 10 actually, yeah. So I lived there till I was like 13, then came back and went to John Adams.
So where would you say you spent the most time? In what area?
Yeah, I would call like the West Side my stomping grounds, because ever since like 7th grade on up, I've been there.
What area? Out of the West Side.
So Santa Monica, I lived off of like Pico and 28th by the 99-cent store right there. By actually Stewart Park. I lived there for a little bit, and then we moved to the Palms right there off of like National and Palms, where they cross by that Bob's Market. That was like the major stomping grounds. So I would say like Palms and Santa Monica are my main stomping grounds.
Was that disruptive to your upbringing, bouncing around so much, or it was nothing? You enjoyed it?
I would say it was a little bit disruptive. I mean, I don't know if it was that was disruptive, or just like the shit that I was going through as a kid that was disruptive. I mean, if I really had to analyze it, it was the trauma from divorce and like all the shit that I went through with that was disruptive, that filled me with all the anger as a kid. Because I was like, when they moved me to San Bernardino, I was just getting kicked out of school at a young age. I was getting in fights, and I was already just like wreaking havoc as a young kid. And I think that stems from like all the anger that I was dealing with. So I don't know if it was the moving locations as much as it was the trauma from a divorce.
What age did you first get kicked out of school?
It's like second grade. I beat up some kid in the bathroom, and I got kicked out of school. I put his head in the toilet, and that was like the first time I got kicked out of school. Yeah, and then it was just an ongoing kind of thing. Calmed down, but that was the first major sign of like anger. I remember they even like took me to a specialist, and they tried to put me on fucking whatever that shit is, Prozac, Zoloft, all that shit as a kid. Said I was like hyperactive or something. Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's what they blame the aggression on?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That's what the shrinks do. They're just like, oh, give him some of this. He's this and that, But they don't really analyze like with the root cause, or like they don't know how to deal with it. I'm sure now they do, but back then it was just bang, give them some pills.
How'd you spend your time as a kid? Like, if you'd say, like, did you play sports? Were you a bookworm?
I grew up playing soccer, bro. I was into martial arts, soccer, so I was always active. I loved everything that had to do with athleticism and sports and stuff. So, I played a lot of soccer. I was very adventurous. I like to build shit. I like to draw. I actually started drawing when I was a kid. That was like my first, like, oh, this is what I'm good at. You know what I mean? When I was a kid, was drawing. I remember I used to draw my uncle's records. He was a big music connoisseur, so he had the old school U2 vinyls, Depeche Mode, Billy Idol. I remember my first major portrait was a Billy Idol portrait, you know, with the little earring. I just sat there and drew him. I was like 5, bro. It came out just like the record, like the cover. And then I drew the Depeche Mode cover. And shit came out just like it. It was dope.
That's interesting. Most kids would say like they were drawing cartoon characters, but you're over here drawing album covers.
Yeah. That's also ties into the music later, but like there was always like music around. But yeah, after doing that, I was like, oh damn, I'm kind of good at drawing. I started drawing all the WB characters, fucking Speedy Gonzalez, Yosemite, and then I was like, damn, I could actually look at something and draw it. You know, and then I started drawing my own cartoons as a kid, and I used to draw these little like swole comics and shit. You know, yeah, it was cool.
So, what music were you around listening to as a kid?
It was everything, because you know, at all the family reunions, it was all cumbia and stuff. So Juan Gabriel, like all my uncles and aunts loved Juan Gabriel. Like in the '80s, you know, everybody loved Juanga. So there was that. All like the old school Spanish oldies from, you know, from Mexico, from Latin America. And then my uncle, my tío Martin, he was like a connoisseur of music. He loved like all like the stuff that was in at the moment. So like Depeche Mode, U2, The Cure. And then I had an older cousin who was into hip hop. So like Kid and Play, you know, Kid Frost, all the old school stuff, you know, Beastie Boys, everything from that 80s era.
And why not? Why wasn't it Spanish or rock that you got into? Why do you think it was hip hop that you acquiesced to?
I think, all right, well, damn, now that you asked that, it's a little deeper, because growing up, I was always teased for being dark. So naturally, I would hang out with the black kids in elementary. I was just like, even in my own like family, everybody called me Negro. That was my nickname growing up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like Negro, you know, because I was really dark. But like right now, I'm just like whatever. But if I stay out in the sun, this is like 50% of my capacity. But so I was always hanging out with them because I like identified. It was like a weird mind thing, you know. Everybody called me that, so I would hang out with them, with black kids, and they would always be listening to rap and hip hop, and so that combined with, you know, my cousin being in hip hop and the stuff we were watching, ordering all these videos on. I don't know if you remember, you could order videos, like you call a phone number and give your credit card information and request a video to come on TV. We'd order all that stuff. Mellow Mayonnaise, Vanilla Ice, fucking, you know, Gerardo, Rico Suave. I learned how to dance because of that Ice Ice Baby shit. I would just keep ordering that and I would copy the moves.
Humor. Yeah, it's class. That is it. I mean, no matter how bad people try to downgrade Vanilla Ice, he was like,
that shit was iconic, bro. Like, they don't give a fuck. That shit was an iconic moment in hip hop culture, as watered down and mainstream as you want to call it. You know, everybody knew the Ice Ice Baby. Everybody did. You know, that shit was hot. It was hot for a minute.
Yeah, it's similar like MC Hammer. Everyone wants to pretend like they didn't think it's cool or dance to it or rocked out to it.
Yeah.
Going into hip hop, where did you first start? What element did you first start participating in?
I think the dance. Even though I was an artist, I just didn't really know like too much. Like I started doing graffiti later on when I was like 9, but I started dancing earlier than that. Like I said, I would order the Vanilla Ice and try to copy the moves. I would do the MC Hammer, do the Chinese typewriter. I was really into the dance aspect, and then I tried to do pop locking and all that stuff as a kid. So I was very attracted to that side of the b-boying.
What about breakdancing?
I never got good at it. I tried it. I never put enough effort into it. I liked the pop locking more. It's something about controlling and contracting your muscles and like moving around like a robot really attracted me and shit.
What element did you start pursuing as a youth?
I would say, yeah, the dance. And then later on, when I was 9, I started getting into the graffiti. Because when I was 9, I lived in Gardena, and I had a little older homie. He was like a few years older than me, and he was into graffiti, and we started a little crew called BLB, and we would just mob up all like the mailboxes and just like any little signs with markers, just like these fat markers. That was like my first intro. I used to write chaos when I was 9, because my name started with a K, so I was like, all right, chaos, you know? So that was my name.
So do you think if that friend in Gardena would have been doing something like DJing or breakdancing, that you would have went into that element as opposed to graffiti?
Probably, because I looked up to him. He was like the cool kid, you know what I mean? So whatever he was doing, I think everybody else would have followed. He was the guy. You know how that happens in circles as kids. It's like there's that one guy that does, and everybody kind of follows.
So would you say children are highly influenced by their peers?
Yeah,
You know,
hell yeah.
it has a big part to play.
Fuck yeah, bro. It's everything. Like that whole saying, "You are who you hang out with," isn't just made up. Like it really is. Especially as a kid, you're just a sponge, and especially when you're like, you grow up in kind of like a broken household, you seek all your knowledge from the streets and from your peers. So everything they're saying, you take it as like full, like everything, you know? So you're soaking it all up from them.
When's the first time you caught a spot? I guess in Gardena, right?
Yeah, I remember it was like it was like the neighbor's mailbox. It was like a block over, you know what I mean? I remember just hitting it up, and that feeling that I got from doing that rush. I remember that was the first time I was like, oh, this is like, there's something to this, you know? That was that first rush I got from mobbing. I was like, damn, I fell in love with it ever since then. And
so what was that feeling? Explain it.
it was like a feeling of like fuck you, I'm independent, I do what I want. And it was just like an expression of my rage and anger as a kid, you know? And it's like, I know I'm doing something, like I know I'm not supposed to be doing it, but I'm doing it anyway, and I'm representing myself at the same time. So it was like a combination of emotions, you know?
So you could say it's kind of empowering.
Super empowering, yeah. Very empowering, yeah. I think that's what it was. That's what graffiti is, and hip hop in general is it gives a voice to those who aren't heard. Like, hey, look, we got a voice too. This is what we do. Like, that's how we expressed it, you know. So that feeling I got off just from catching a tag on the box, and I was like, I get it. Like, even at a young age, I was like, ooh, there's something to this, you know.
How did you progress and do it more and more?
I started doing little characters. I got into like lowrider art, and I started drawing the little like homies, and then I started drawing the little lowriders. I would create my own little like cars, you know, and just, yeah, I just always had a thing with being able to like draw cartoons and stuff. And so when that lowrider art and lowrider magazine started coming around, I remember just like trying to create my own thing. I was like, I want to be featured in one of these magazines, you know? So I would always draw dope ass little cars with the Daytons and fucking little homies posted up, and, you know, like little, oh, you remember those shirts with the little full tagging, like the little tagger with the baggy pants? I used to always draw stuff like that. So yeah, that kind of art I was like very into.
The stuff they had at Con Art, and then
they need to bring those shirts. Those shirts were dope.
A Miller's Outpost.
Yeah.
What were the other stores that had them?
I just remember Miller's. That was the main one I used to go to right here on Robertson and Pico when I was there.
Oh yeah, there was Miller's right there. Did you ever try to send some of your artwork into Lowrider?
I think I entered one of the competitions. I never heard back. I don't know. I thought I did some dope shit, but I was really young too. I mean, it was probably whack now that I look back. And it was decent, but like there was some fools that were already older in those competitions that had all the shading down, you know, everything was like, but whatever, it was cool.
So did you ever catch a case from graffiti?
Yeah,
I
mean, nothing heavy, like community service. One time we got caught bombing in like a train station in like Santa Ana area, and the cops came. They whooped our ass, by the way. Those cops are fucking racist as fuck out there, bro. They called me a beaner and whooped my ass. Like, right
What age was this?
This was already older. I was already like in high school. You know, I was like freshman probably. I was like 14, probably 15.
What happened after? Did you face any repercussions in
Just
your
probation,
household?
just community service, and that was pretty much it. Just community service, and that was it. Like no probation actually. Or yeah, we were on probation for like 6 months in community service. That was it.
And what were your feelings after that? Were you deterred from doing that? Were you like?
Not really. I was at that age where I didn't give a shit about anything, you know. So I still kept doing it. Even like at community service, I was catching spots. So it really didn't do nothing. Like nothing at that age could like change my mind or anything, you know. Like nothing involving the law unless like I did some serious time, which I did later on. But like little probation and stuff like that didn't really affect me at all.
There's lots of people that say, you know, these people should get a stiff sentence first time around so they learn their lesson. Mm-hmm. But you're saying you don't think it would have had an implication on doing stuff, progressing and doing stuff later on in your behavior. Do you think so?
I mean, depends what kind of a sentence, because like, I mean, you can't give somebody years for graffiti unless they've like caused some serious damage. I don't even know if that's, you know, so I don't think anything would have affected me unless I did like a stretch, you know what I mean? Even though it's not right, but that shit will like make you think, you know? But I don't think anybody should get that for graffiti, especially your first time. No. I think what they need to do for that, if they want to like, they could, I mean now, right, it's easier said now than looking back, but they can like throw these kids into like art classes and give them like that kind of direction. Like, oh, you're talented at that, you like to draw, here are some resources, like join this art class and like help them see their talent, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting you say that because I don't think as a youth the schools do enough to hone in on each student's specific talent and grasp that.
That's the problem. That's why the youth is so confused. Is you go to school and you just learn all this. I mean, it's helpful some of the stuff you learn, but like 80% of that shit you forget. So like the education system's messed up. Yeah, they don't hone into like what your specific, because everybody has a specific dharma, as they call it, a specific talent, a specific way of doing things that they're good at. Their mind works in a specific way, and if you don't notice that in a kid and try to like fan that flame, then you're just, all that other education is just kind of like going in one ear and out the other. It's not really doing anything for them.
So, what's the first crew you joined?
Shit. Other than Bad Little Boys when I was 9, BLB, that wasn't really as, like, it was a crew, but it was just a few of us. I think, like, when I was really getting serious in graffiti out here, my first crew was FMK. I was just like a Westside Palms crew, like Venice. And then I've only ever been 2 crews. That was it. And then I got into a different crew after that.
And what school were you going to?
When I was in FMK, I was in Santa Monica High School, like my freshman year. I was writing Presto. And I was from FMK. Before that, I was Urge, and then I wrote Presto. And once I started getting up everywhere, they hit me up like, you want to be from this crew, like blah blah. And it was just homies that I knew anyway, so it was kind of like, you know.
So what crew was after that?
After that, CSM. Because I started building a little name with Presto. I was catching all the buses and like doing little throw ups everywhere. So they took a notice to that and they were like, yo.
And that was a crew in Palms?
CSM? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a West Side crew, well known West Side crew out here. Everybody looked up to him when I was like getting into graffiti. Or not getting into it, but like doing it. Because I was already into it. But when I moved out here, even like before I got into FMK and before that, I really started like catching a gang of spots. I used to see CSMs up all over, and I was like, damn, they're kind of tight. And then, so yeah, when they approached me, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of down, you know. And then it turns out I knew them, or like certain friends and family, and like it was just like they were around my neighborhood. They were a little older, some of the cats, so like I wasn't hanging with them, but I knew of them, so it was kind of cool that they noticed me, and so I was like, let's do it.
What was that experience like, being from that crew?
It was fun, man. I remember like when I first got in, I was like super excited and just started putting in the most work, catching rooftops and like, you know, hangovers. Yeah, bro, I was like super for it. Like it felt like a camaraderie that I didn't have before. So plus it was like people I looked up to. Like I looked up to the crew already, so I was like excited for it.
For those that don't know, what's a rooftop and what's a hangover?
Oh, rooftop.
Say someone's watching this that they don't know these names.
Rooftops is I mean what it sounds like, right? You're on top of a roof, but specifically it's rooftops that you can see off of the freeway or certain roads, like main roads. You want to get on a roof and catch a visible spot on either the roof, if you're like on a highway looking down at a roof and you can see it, and that's a good rooftop spot. But if you're like driving down Venice Boulevard, for example, you want like a wall on the roof. You know what I'm saying? Like you want it to be seen. So rooftops is basically any spot you catch on top of a roof that's visible from the street.
Do you remember your first rooftop? What street it was on?
My first dope rooftop. I don't remember my first rooftop because I caught quite a few, but I think my first dope rooftop might have been off of La Tijera in Inglewood. I did a big ass like CSM and like some wicked letters. And I remember it was pretty big and like a lot of people saw it. So I was like, oh, it's cool. That was like it was like right off of the freeway in La Tijera in Centinela, La Tijera area.
And I know you're a man of many talents. You know, you're a very talented individual. We'll go into more of those endeavors later. But so when did you start flowing? I know you MC too.
Yeah, actually, I started getting into lyrics, writing raps, in like 1993. I was like 10, I was still 9, turning 10 when I first started, like around that same area when I started writing, doing graffiti. I remember hearing like Nothing But a G Thing by Dr. Dre, and like, I know this sounds kind of cheesy, but Snow, Informer, like something about that flow, like Informer.
That was a bad song.
That was a dope ass song.
That dude's really talented.
Yeah, he was tight, and it was like MC Shan put him under his wing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like I remember having that cassette and like trying to like really dissect the lyrics, like what the fuck is this fool saying? and then like writing down the sounds, kind of like we did when like Bone Thugs came out. You would write down the sounds because you couldn't understand what the fuck they were saying. So you're just like, a licky boom boom down, like even though he's actually saying something. But by doing that, I started coming up with cadences and then trying to put words to it, and I started like writing raps. It all started by like trying to decipher what the hell they're saying, So I remember writing my first rap. I know I started writing raps, but my first major rap that I wrote, I was living right here off of Pico and Stewart, and I was in middle school. And we dubbed, it was a clip off of Depeche Mode, I think it might have been. It was like a little clip, and we just kept, for the beat, we just kept looping it. And then I had my sister and her friend sing the hook. I wrote a hook for them. That was my first major song, like the whole production. I was like in 7th grade or something.
And you recorded it?
And we recorded it, yeah.
Do you still have it?
I don't know where it's at, but I remember saying, We lived right there on 2954 on Exposition Boulevard, and I was like, 2954 is my number. Catch me downstairs, making thunder. And then I remember I tried like jockeying that song, Twins got the sound that make you go round and round, round and round. Like, I forgot what I took from that. I don't know, man. We were just like kind of like copying certain songs, like some of the stuff we were saying. But you know, that's how it works. You just kind of take from different artists and make it your own.
And who was your favorite hip hop artist back then that you looked up to?
At that time, when I wrote that song, or just in general, like
that period in general.
That period. So it later came to be KRS-One, but at that time I was really into Biggie, and who else was I into during that time? I was into DOS Effects. Those were like the two guys I remember, because I remember having their CDs. Like somebody gave me their CDs as a birthday present, and I remember like really being into them during that little time, like when I first started writing. Yeah. And then later I started discovering like all the stuff before them, and like KRS-One and Public Enemy, and like everything just opened up from there.
And how many siblings do you have?
I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters, but the original, so I have half brothers and half sisters. But it was originally 3 of us. It was my older sister, she's a year older than me, and a younger brother a year apart, a year younger than me. So it was 3 of us originally, like during that time, and then later on, my dad remarried and had kids, and then my mom ended up remarrying and had another daughter. So my brother and sisters siblings expanded.
Were you really close to them? Did you look up to your sister?
I was close. I was close with both of my. I went through different periods where I was really close with my little brother, and then I was really close with my sister. You know, it was either one or the other. I don't think it was like close to both of them at the same time. It was like I was really close to my brother, and then I was really close to my sister. Yeah, I think when I was doing all my dirt, my little brother was like my little right-hand man. He would always, like, even though he wasn't doing anything, he was always there with me, like supporting my shit, you know. He would like hold the ladders for me when I'd go mobbing and stuff, even though he didn't write, you know.
What was the most dangerous experience you had doing graffiti?
Shit. There was quite a few, but I remember one that I felt like I was about to die. I caught this billboard right here on Venice in like Clarington. Like there was this car wash that was right there by Hughes, and like, you know. I was up there with the homie Ruckus, and we climbed up there and we took these big ass buckets. They were like big old, I don't know if they were paint buckets, but they were big buckets so that we can get even higher with our stuff, because we didn't have a ladder. We couldn't even take a ladder up there, I don't think. So we just took these buckets because they were lightweight. So when I was doing my piece, I was standing on the buckets, and Ruckus was holding the bucket to secure that I didn't slip, you know? And on one of them, like, I think he let go or something, and I fell off the bucket, and I just kind of like bounced around and like landed on the edge of the billboard. And I was just like, oh shit. I remember like looking down, like, oh, I could have fell, and I like got so mad at him because he was like faded. We were both kind of high, but like, I don't know what the hell he was doing, but he let go of the bucket for a second. I was pissed off.
Did you continue doing it after that near-death experience?
Hell yeah. Yeah, because that one got me a lot of like, that was one of my first like big major spots that everybody knew me for. So I was like jacked after that, you know what I mean?
After the billboard.
After the billboard, because that rush, and it ran for a bit. Like it didn't get buffed for a while, so it was up there. And I remember that's when I was really developing my style, because by then I was Slaughter. I was writing Slaughter. Because when I got into CSM, I started with, my first name was Professor, because I was writing Presto, so I wanted to keep some of those same letters, the P, the R, and the S. So I wrote Professor, and then I switched to Scar, because I have a big ass scar on my back. And then I went to Slaughter. And so that was my first major big ass like burner as Slaughter, you know? That was like, and I was developing my like little style. And I think from there, from that particular bomb, I developed my style from there.
You said you have a big scar on your back.
Yeah.
What's that from?
In my teenage years, I developed kyphosis, which means that your spine is bending forward a little bit. So scoliosis means sideways, kyphosis means like forward. So I was leaning forward a little bit from an injury I had as a kid. I was doing like backflips as a kid into a pool, and on one of them I half stepped and landed on the edge of the pool. So I had like a tiny fracture, and as I grew into my teenage years, my back started curving. So they had to fuse my spine. I have titanium, like my whole back's like titanium pretty much. Some Wolverine shit.
What would possess you to go up to the height of a billboard high?
Because everything we did, we were high at that age. You know, we would smoke weed for anything. It made us creative. It made us like, I can't even think of a time when I was sober during that era.
Wow.
You know, like I can't remember. Like everything was weed and induced. You know, if we weren't high, like off weed, we were drinking or doing something. You know.
So your first drug, what was it? Alcohol, weed?
I think I had a drink before I ever smoked weed, but those kind of went hand in hand. I think that's what it is for most kids, you know? That's how it happened to me. I smoked weed and drank almost simultaneously at the same time, you know? I don't know which one came first, but they were right around the same time. But those two. And then they just became interlinked, where it's like I did one, I did the other.
Would you say at this time you were addicted to those substances?
Yeah. I think I don't know if it's a real thing, but they say I have an addictive personality where like if I do something, I start like doing it all the time. So I would say yeah. Yeah, because I was doing it like often. Like I don't remember a time where it's just like, all right, we did it, and then weeks went by and we did it again. We're like, nah, we'll wait till next week. It was just like, all right, we did it. Oh, that felt good. Let's keep going, you know? And then it just, from there, just kept going and led to other shit.
And how were your grades during this time? If you're doing all this, you're engaged.
Oh, those shits took a big dip. Like I remember they were okay. Like my first like half a year in high school, and then as soon as I started, because I didn't like a lot of kids get into that shit earlier than I did. I didn't really start smoking and drinking until like halfway through 9th grade, or even like at the beginning of 10th grade, I think. Because I was playing soccer. I was like really into soccer, so I think it really took a spin, like a downward spiral in the 10th grade. That's when I got kicked off of my soccer team, and like, because for being high and missing practice and doing all this shit, my coach was like, all right, it's enough. And I got kicked off of that, and then after that, everything just started going downhill. Because I was so in love with soccer, the fact that I couldn't play anymore just like fucked me up even more. And so I just started like, all right, fuck this shit, fuck all this shit, you know? Started ditching.
So why at that point were you not like, I have a problem with something, I got kicked off the soccer team, I need to stop with this?
I didn't have anything else. I didn't know anything else. I didn't have any positive male role models in my life, you know what I mean? And I think that's the thing we could come back to later. But I think that's what it was. It's like, other than my soccer coach, I don't think anybody else was like a positive male role model. You know what I mean? That you could be like, oh, I want to be like that, you know? So all that I knew was just like, just angry fucking teenager friends that I had, and we were just all doing the same thing. So that's what we did.
So after that, did you say you weren't going to pursue soccer anymore, and you're just going to pursue this other avenue that you were already involved in?
Yeah, I was mad. It made me even more angry that I couldn't play anymore. So it's like I almost did it as like a revenge. Like I went even harder with the drugs and the drinking and ditching and just like, you know, ignoring my academics. I was like, why do I need good grades now? I'm not on the soccer team now, so fuck everything, you know? And I just kind of like let it spin out of control from there. And I got kicked out in 11th grade.
So where'd you go when you got kicked out? Continuation?
Yeah, I went to, Olympic? continuation, like down the street from Samo. And all that is just another place to like get high with your friends, you know? Like that shit doesn't do anything for, I don't think continuation school works for people. Maybe some certain people, but I think generally it's just like everybody knows it's bullshit, you know?
And what was your funnest experience with doing graffiti?
I think what I enjoyed most was the thrill of sneaking out of my house without my mom knowing. Like I remember I would even like steal her car and like go mobbing in her car. The thrill of doing that and bringing it back without her knowing, and then like being back in bed and like nothing happened. Just that little like whatever it took, 3-4 hour cycle was the funnest thing to me. Like just being, I think it was just the thrill of being able to get away with it and see if I could pull it off. I remember I used to throw her car in neutral, let it roll out of the driveway because it was like on a little bit of a hill, so that nobody could hear that the car was moving. And then putting it back exactly how it was parked, putting the keys exactly where they were. Just that like ninjaing around, I think was the funnest shit to me.
So you did have some discipline if you're trying to sneak out late at night. It wasn't like you were allowed to be out.
No.
Late night, right?
No, I mean, not then. Then after I got kicked out, like once she discovered how bad I really was, and then I started acting out, and like, yeah, I got kicked out. But
Or you got kicked out of your house.
yeah, I got kicked out of my house.
Her house, I mean.
Yeah. Then I was just like living in my car or staying at the homie's house, just jumping from sofa, couch to couch, and like, you know.
What age was this?
Like 17, 18, I think. I got kicked out like 18. Yeah, I was already 18.
How long did that last? Did you just continue living alone, or did you go back eventually?
I continue. I don't think. Oh, you know what? I kind of did. I did go back actually. At one point, I did go back, but it took a while. Like, I would always just kind of like sleep in my car or at the homie's house. But when I would sleep in my car, I'd park around my house, and then have my little brother bring me out food and stuff. So it's like I was still living there, but not in the house. You know what I mean? I'd hit up my brother like, "Yo, I'm getting hungry, bro. Go up in that fridge and make me a sandwich or something." He would do it and bring it out to me. So it was like I was like camping out front or something in my car, you know? Yeah. But I ended up moving back in for like a hot second. It didn't last long because then I got locked up shortly after that.
Why did you choose CSM as far as any other Westside crew you could have chose?
I don't know. I think I was really. They were up everywhere, bro. So they were just like the crew. You know what I mean? When I was around there, it was just like everybody thought they were the dopest shit. You know what I mean? As far as like my peers that I hung out with. So it was like a flex. Like, oh, I'm from CSM now. What's up with you guys? You know what I mean? Like, or, I mean, not like necessarily like dissing them, but like it felt cool to be part of it. You know, and they're the ones that approached me, and I really liked their style. You know what I mean? Their letters were real clean, the way they wrote, and I used to see them up everywhere. So I was like, yeah. And they were like from the area, and some of them went to my high school, and some like lived a few blocks away from where I was staying. So it made sense.
They had a pretty bad beef with another crew. That didn't deter you?
Nah, yeah, you know what? I guess I signed the waiver. I was a little bit concerned, you know, because I knew about it. I guess I didn't fully understand how bad it was when I got in until like actually being from it and like, you know, having different encounters and whatever it was. But yeah, it was a pretty bad beef. Luckily, I never got injured from it, you know, but a lot of my friends did, you know, and they gave out pretty serious injuries too. Even guys that weren't from my crew, just from being around us, ended up like participating in some of those little like scuffles that fools ended up getting their head bashed in with like hammers and stuff, you know.
Where did that beef start from?
You know what? I don't think I ever like cared to know how it started. Now that I think about it, I don't remember how it started. That's how crazy it is. We're just like in it. I don't remember how it started now that I think about it. I think it was like, I'm just like guessing at this point, but I think it was like it was supposed to be a graffiti battle or something, and like that, or I don't know, maybe I'm just like coming up with some other story in my head, but I don't remember how it started. I just know that when I got in there was beef and it was really heavy. It was like almost like gang banging beef at that time, you know? It was like on site. I remember I even got like a gun pulled down on me one time by one of those fools.
How did you decipher and survive that, wiggle through that?
Honestly, I was like, I don't know. I wasn't really, I was more into the art aspect of it. So I focused on that. I wasn't really out there like looking for their names to cross out. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't like trying to bang like that. I was just like, I'm gonna keep doing my shit. I'm gonna get up as much as I can. Focus on my art. If I get crossed out, whatever. If we see each other, fine. But I wasn't, my mind wasn't, I'm like, let's find these fools or let's go cross them out. I was like, these other fools can handle that. I'm gonna just do the art, you know?
That's interesting. So you said it didn't even cross your mind, or you didn't even care about it. It's almost like a blind allegiance. It's almost like a soldier that signs up but doesn't care how the war started or
Yeah.
what he might be, what type of violence he might be shifted into, what he might face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's how it is for the army, right? A lot of these guys just sign up for the brotherhood and all the benefits that come from being in the army. They don't give a fuck what's happening or who's calling the shots or like how we got into the Middle East and all the oil we're fucking robbing and all this shit. You know, they don't care about like the politics behind it. They're just like, all right, let's do this shit. I'm with it.
So you could almost say someone isn't of sound mind at this age to make a decision like that.
Hell no.
Either sign your life away to the army or
No.
sign your life away to a crew or a gang.
Hell no. You're not really thinking. You're just like, yeah, at that age, fuck no, you're not making like the smartest choices, you know? You're just trying to be a part of something. You're looking for a sense of belonging. And I think that's how people end up in gangs, graffiti crews, the army, whatever. It's that same yearning to belong to a group and having people that have your back, like a tribe. Because as humans, we're all tribal, you know? We want to be part of something and have people that we can count on and that watch our backs and shit. So I think the same goes with the army, same goes with gangs.
Why be at that? Because I know you're a very devout Hare Krishna. For those that don't know, that's a religion.
Now I am. Yeah.
No, but you grew up around it, right?
I grew up. I was born into that philosophy, that tradition. My parents were getting into that philosophy when they had us, so they gave us all spiritual names. So my birth name is Krishna Das, which is a name from India, it's in Sanskrit, which originated in India, and my name means servant of the Supreme or the All-Attractive, or Krishna also means black, so servant of the black, you know? So, yeah, they were into it, and I was born into it, but I never studied it for myself. It was just like, you know, you're born into something, but just like I was in the crew, I didn't know where the beef started or how it was there, you know? I never took the time to find out for myself. So I discovered it later on. Like, even though I was part of it, I wouldn't call myself a Hare Krishna really at that age. Now I am, because I actually practice it and I took the time to study it. But at that age, I didn't know. I was just like, you know, living around the temple area, and because the temple's right here in Palms, and I kind of lived nearby it and all that. So, but yeah, I don't think being born into something necessarily makes you of it. You know, that's almost like a caste system. If you're born, like, you know, back in the day they had the caste system. If you were born into a family of laborers, even if you were an artist, you were considered a laborer. Like, you know, you were just because of your family lineage. So I don't think family lineage or being born into something determines or label makes you that. You have to really do it for yourself.
Did you ever have a job? What's your
did.
first job?
My first job, I was the manager at this Italian sandwich shop in the Westside Pavilion. And let me tell you, that shit was wild. I was already doing drugs and trying to run this sandwich shop in the Westside Pavilion, trying to get at all the girls in the mall. It was a bad combination. I'll tell you what, I didn't do. I was good at my job. I was really good with the knife and chopping salads and stuff like that, but I was a piece of shit already. I was like stealing from the register, doing drugs in the back, having girls in the back, doing lines of coke back there, all kinds of dirty
Wow,
shit.
where was this in?
It's in the Westside Pavilion.
Oh, the mall.
Yeah.
It used to be on Westwood and Pico.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a Google headquarters now. I'm not sure. That's it. That's interesting. So
That was my first job.
so you said drugs. You were doing harder stuff by this time?
Yeah. So, from weed, then it got into crack. Actually, I did a crazy jump where it was like cocaine and crack from weed, and then I started doing P-Dogs. I remember I was addicted to crack for like 6 months, like straight up crackhead style, like smoking out of a pipe with a Brillo, looking in the carpet for little dropped nuggets, like full crackhead style. Me and a couple of my friends. I've hit some lows like that, and then I got into crystal meth, and that shit, it was what kind of threw me off the edge, because now I'm like, all right, damn, this shit is like better than crack. It lasts longer, it's cheaper, like in general, because it lasts longer. I don't have to smoke weed, so I was like, I'm killing, like, my rationale was like, all right, I'm not doing coke anymore, I'm not smoking crack, I'm not drinking as much, I'm not smoking weed, all I'm just doing is this one drug. I'm like, all right, this is better for me. So I started doing meth a lot, and that shit was just like,
What was the feeling of crack? I mean, I've never smoked crack. What is it? What type of feeling does it give you? Is it euphoric? Is it?
Yeah, it's this intense euphoria, all in one blast. Like, I mean, it's been such a long time, but I remember just like hitting it, and after all that went into you, like inhaled the smoke, you just felt like untouchable. Like, it was this intense euphoria that I don't think you get from other drugs like that. It hits different, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't last as long, but that feeling you get from that hit is what keeps addicts. It was what makes crack addicts. It's like this, yeah, I could just describe it as an intense euphoria, like, that you don't get from any other drug. But it happens so fast and it lasts so little that you're just like, oh shit, I want to feel that again. So you're just like, and you're only happy knowing that you have an extra piece to smoke. If you, like, that's what's so crazy about that drug, is like, you're high, you're smoking it, but you feel like shit if it's your last piece. Only when you see that there's more on the table and you're still smoking is when you're good. But if you're down to your last one, you're already in anxiety. That's how crazy that shit is.
How were these drugs? These are some pretty hard drugs. How were they introduced to you? By a friend? By
I mean, they
a
were
girl?
around. They were around. Like, friends. Friends had them. I don't remember exactly how, But yeah, we all had friends that knew the plug, or like some of our friends were plugs, so it was easy to access, And so they were just around, Especially, it was like a epidemic at one point, especially like in the later 90s, like methamphetamine, like everybody in the Palms area started getting into it, and it became a thing. I think even after I got like locked up, it got even worse in that area.
Your first time hitting meth, smoking, snorting it, another way?
Snorted it.
And what was that feeling like?
I didn't know what to do. I thought it was like doing coke, so I did like a fat ass line, because I was used to doing like Tony Montana lines, you know, with coke. So when I did that, it was the most painful fucking experience ever, bro. Oh, it was it was painful. I remember just feeling like I just like broke my nose, or my nose was on fire. But after that burn went away, I was just like, whoa, what is this? I remember just immediately feeling like, damn, this is good. What is this? And I was like immediately addicted after.
What was so good about the feeling?
It had that euphoria like crack, but it wasn't as like, it didn't like it wasn't as strong, and like how could I describe it? It didn't feel as like anxiety driven, like, because that shit makes you kind of paranoid at first. Crack does, like after that that euphoria goes away. But this was just like, it was new to me, and it just felt so calming and soothing, mixed with that crack euphoria. You know what I mean? I don't know how to describe it, but it had me really alert, and I felt like I could just like do whatever I wanted. Like, it just gave me this feeling of being unstoppable, you know?
Would you say drugs got in the way of your graffiti and rhyming activities?
Yeah, even though I still did it during that, definitely like my creativity started diminishing, I would say, from that. Even though in my head I'm thinking like, oh, I'm drawing on this in this black book, you know what I mean? But I'm just like I could, when I was on that shit, I could draw on a black book all day. I would just sit there drawing, you know? But I don't know if the stuff I was creating was as sick as it would, if it would have been if I wasn't doing it, you know what I mean? But I don't know, man. I've actually created some dope shit on meth. I'm not gonna sit here in front. Like, some of my illest rhymes that I wrote, because I still did it when I hit the pen a little bit. Like in the first couple of years, I was still messing around with drugs. And I remember sometimes I would stay up writing rhymes in my bunk, and I wrote some like really technical verses that I still spit to this day at shows, you know, because there's just like, it opened up a different part of my mind. But I don't credit it necessarily for my lack of creativity or creativity. I just know that it puts you in a different state of mind. But ultimately, it diminished me as a person.
So when did you notice it was a problem? When you were working at the mall?
Yeah, bro. Yeah. And then after that, once I started stealing from the register, and then once I started doing stuff like that, like stealing and doing shady shit, you know what I mean? I knew that it was a problem. Like, why am I doing this? Oh, because I need money to support my habit. You know what I mean? Even though I was working and making money, but now I'm like, I need more, you know? So I knew that that's when I like, it first hit me like, oh, this is like something serious, you know? I could, like, you know, in retrospect, I can see that that's where it started, like, you know?
Did you ever seek out help for this problem?
No. I remember I even worked as a security guard at Fox Studios, and I would just walk around smoking cigarettes and just like on a good one, you know, being all alert with the fucking flashlight, just like, you know. But yeah, I didn't seek any help. I didn't tell any of my loved ones, you know. I think they knew that I was on something, but they didn't know what, you know. They were kind of ignorant to that. I don't think most people were. Nobody knew. It was relatively new to a lot of people, you know? So nobody knew what to look for, what the signs were. Now everybody knows about it. They know, like, to look for, like, you know, hyperactive activity or weight loss in an individual. I think it was so new to people then they didn't know what the hell was going on, you know?
So at this time, you haven't really caught any major cases, right? You could say you've stayed
Nah,
out
I
of the
was good.
out of the hairs of the law.
I mean, I at that point I had been locked up. I was already like breaking laws, like beer runs and stupid shit like that. Like as a kid, I would steal too. Like I remember getting detained from stealing PlayStations and Sega Saturns from the Sears and behind Santa Monica Mall. So I was already doing that. Like that propensity of stealing and robbing shit was already in me as a kid. But I never really got into any serious trouble. Like I was detained. I was thrown into the for a beer run and like a what do they call it, joyriding, and we stole a car one time and they just threw us in like a quick like holding tank for a bit and let us go as kids, you know. But nothing really like we're all down facing the case, you know. So yeah, nothing really. I mean, I guess that's serious to most people already. Like, you know, if you're stealing fucking cars and like being held up in tanks, but like to us, that wasn't like that serious yet, you know.
So then, after the mall gig, what was your progression into catching your first major case?
So what happened was I started hanging out with these older cats that were like near my area in Palms. Some of them were Rastas, and they had me reading these books and were like just like filling my mind with all these ideas, these subversive, I guess you would what most people would consider conspiracy theories ideas. So they gave me this book called Behold the Pale Horse, and I remember reading it.
That's the book by William Cooper, for those that don't know.
Yeah.
Really good book. He was an ex-Navy intelligence officer that wrote a book.
Yeah, and he spilled a lot of like inside ideas or inside info. And he actually got killed like shortly after the book was published or went missing. And anyway.
He was in a shootout with the police.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, right. I think they tried to assassinate him.
Yeah. I'm sure there was more to it than they made it seem, right? Oh, it's a shootout with them, but I'm sure yeah. Anyway, I read that book and
well, he was a target after putting that book out.
Yeah, obviously he was a target, you know. Anybody.
He had a talk show too.
Anybody that blows the whistle on these fools, you know, anyway. But so I read that book and I'm on meth, 18 years old, reading that book. And I just remember feeling angry at, like, oh, so you're telling me that all this shit is like controlled by, you know, certain families and the bankers have all the power and they're exploiting my people, that they're creating this music to keep us all dumb and in the ghetto, and there's liquor stores to keep, you know what I mean? Like all this information that was, that I was receiving made me angry because it was focused on why I was in my situation and why minorities are kept in those lower situations, lack of education and poor resources and drug-filled neighborhoods and all this stuff. And I'm like trying to make sense of it as a kid. And I remember just being so angry, thinking like, oh, it's because of these fucking greedy bankers and these families that want to keep their power and be on top and, you know, all this stuff. And, you know, I'm not explaining it fully the way it is, but this is what was running through my head as a kid, as 18 years old. So I was like, fuck these fools. I'm going to start like robbing these bankers. Like this is happening in my head. And so one day I decided to just go out and rob what I thought were bankers. Like I would wait outside of like random banks, Wells Fargo was like U.S. Bank, Bank of America, whatever it was, and wait for like one of the workers that looked like a corporate, like with a suitcase. I was like literally, I know this sounds racist, but I was like targeting like somebody that resembled what I read in that book, you know, like Jewish, white, corporate, briefcase, banker looking fools. And I would roll up to them in my car and be like, throw your shit in the car. And I did like, you know, it started out as that, and then as it progressed, I couldn't find enough of them, so I just started robbing other like random dudes, you know, in a drug induced state of mind, thinking I was some kind of Robin Hood, like doing good, you know, fighting back. And also, I was thinking like, all right, I'm getting all this money from this, and I'm gonna buy my next fucking sack with this, you know. At the same time, I'm not trying to say like I was like righteous or something, you know what I mean? But these are the thoughts that were running in my head. So I did that, and I did like a robbing spree of like a day and a half or something. Must have done 20 something robberies or more. I got, you know.
Some people read that book for the first time and it empowers them.
Right.
And they either go into some type of activism, or they might start a newsletter, they might do something more progressive.
Yeah.
So why do you think you were like, hey, I'm gonna go rob some people that could resemble them, but it could not?
Yeah, well, because I was fucking on meth. So being on meth, that's the gist of it. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to make sense of it. I'm on meth. I already have the propensity for stealing and robbing. I was already licking fools. Let's not forget about that.
When you say licking fools, for people
that
don't know.
I had already robbed people before that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But not to that degree, you know what I mean? So, like, I knew what the feeling was, like, hey, give me your shit. So I was like, I'm going to do it to these fools now, you know, like. So I already had that in me, like, I can do this, you know?
What was that first experience like, robbing someone? Because a lot of people don't have the balls to do that or would even think of doing that. Were you one day like, yo, I don't have no money, I'm gonna rob someone? Was it simple as that? Was it?
I already liked the thrill of doing bad shit, you know? So like, I would like like I told you, I would steal PlayStations and Sega Saturns. So that thrill was already in me, but the neighborhood I grew up in, jackings were a thing. Like I got jacked one time by like this local like gang crew / gang that turned into a gang later called BF.
Yeah, that was originally a graffiti crew that turned into a gang.
It turned into a gang. I think it turned into a Crip gang. Anyway, they were doing all the jacking around my neighborhood, and they ended up getting us one time. So just like the fact that was around me already, and I'm like, all right, now I'm gonna do it back, you know? So that's how it kind of started, you know? I was like, oh, we could do this? Like, oh, look how easily they came up on us just because they flashed a gun at us. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, damn, that's how easy it is to get some money, you know? I'm like, damn, all right. You know, with the drugs, this is all drug. I blame everything on the drugs, but it's also the environment and the shit you see as a kid.
Yeah, that's very interesting you say that, because I think sometimes we replicate these behaviors that were done to us sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So something like that might happen to you and you're traumatized by it, and then you replicate it on someone else, sometimes without not even knowing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like you think you're getting revenge, or you might go try to seek this out on the people that did it to you. So
yeah, that too. And we tried that too.
Oh, you tried to jack them back?
Yeah, it didn't really turn out well, you know.
Yeah, they were a force to be reckoned with. I remember traveling on the buses. You know, if you got caught slipping by one of these, it wasn't just them. It was, I think, like you said, it was very big back then.
Yeah. And
people were just doing it to other people. Like, if your numbers overpowered another group.
It was this thing. It was like, even like Gangstar had a song, "Stick Up Kids Are Out." You know what I mean? Like being a stick up thing was like, it was part of like the, like being down kind of a thing. It was kind of cool in a weird way. You know what I mean? It was looked up upon like, oh, this fool's crazy. Like he sticks fools up. You know what I mean? So it was that too, because I always had that mentality. I wanted to be that guy that was like doing the craziest shit out of everybody. you know? Whether it was like catching the craziest spots or just doing the wildest shit.
You think this savagely dangerous behavior to show you're a man, like you look at other cultures, you know what I mean? Someone that comes from like Beverly Hills, you know, there's certain subgroups that they don't look at this as that's a manly behavior. Why does that exist?
Yeah, they have different metrics what they grade a man, right? Or like, is what you're saying, right? Like somebody that grew up in Beverly Hills or Brentwood from a good family is what you're kind of saying?
Not even that. Even in your area, there were probably some kids that it was so foreign to them. Like that wouldn't even cross their mind. You know?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I think it's just different layers of how deep you are into the streets. You know?
Interesting.
I think that's what it is. I think it's just layers of, well, obviously there's layers of consciousness that you're in, right? And like some shit we can't even fathom, right? Like there's stuff that people are doing now that we're just like, God damn, like, you know? So it's just like if you're unaware of it, or you're aware of it, but you don't really see it on a day-to-day basis, and you're not living it, and you're not around people that are doing it, you kind of look at it like, oh, it's kind of like whatever. But if you're around, it becomes commonplace, and it's just like a real thing you're living with. And now it becomes part of your reality, you know? And I think, yeah, like you said, it's like these things that we thought were making us tough is like us trying to make up for the lack thereof of our real toughness, you know what I mean? It was like we're trying to show out in some way because there was a hole that needed to be filled in our lives.
So after your first robbery, would you say you were addicted, or you were just like, I could do this? This is something I'm gonna do.
Yeah. I mean, it was almost like that same thrill I got from mobbing. You know, it was a different kind of a thrill. It was actually very weird because I knew it was like I was never trying to hurt anybody, you know what I mean? Whenever I would rob somebody, I never was like in my head, in the back of my head, like I'm actually gonna hurt them. Like if they resist, all right, fine, get out of here. Like I'm not gonna do nothing to you. You know what I mean? It was just more the fear of I put into them because I was robbing people with a toy gun, a BB gun. I had to hold that shit sideways so that you couldn't see that it was a BB gun because it was like split. So it was like half a BB gun. I had to hold it. So it's like I never really wanted to hurt anybody. So my intent wasn't that. My intent was just like getting a thrill for myself. And very selfish, right? Obviously any of that shit is selfish. But it was the thrill after doing the first one. Like, oh, dang, I just did this. Like it was like a weird power that I had felt, you know? There's a weird feeling of power. Like it's like almost like a dark sense of something that came over me, you know? Or like if you believe in like spirits and all, it was like almost like a bad spirit now was like with me, and I just like felt empowered, you know?
So you were robbing people with a fake gun. So you weren't scared if someone might pull out a real gun back out on you?
I wasn't thinking about that. I was just like one track mind. Actually, like, you know, I ended up getting locked up for those robberies that I told you about. And one of the guys came to court, like several of them showed up to court and pointed me out. But one of the guys said that he was like 2 seconds away from, he was like an ex something, I forgot what he said, but he was like, he had a real gun on him.
Wow.
And it was registered, and he was, you know, he was cool. Like it was his gun. He was allowed to use it in self-defense, so, you know. He was, I think, ex-military or something. Anyway, so he said in court, like, you're lucky, kid. I was this close. Something told me not to shoot you. But he was like, because what I would do is I would count down. I would give them 10 seconds to throw their shit in my car. I'd be like 10, 9, 8, and they would all, like, a lot of them would throw it in immediately, but most of them would wait till the last 5 seconds. And this guy took it down all the way to like 2 seconds. And I remember when I was counting down, I'm like, damn, what's this fool gonna do? We're at 2. He better like react. Like I remember feeling scared, and that's the same guy that came to the corner and said he was about to shoot me in those last 2 seconds.
So you're doing all these robberies, right? You're rolling up on people from a car, telling them to give up their goods.
Right.
So what led up to your arrest?
I was being an idiot. Like I was treating it like a video game. Think about it. I'm robbing people out of my car, my own car.
Wow.
My license plate out in the open. Wasn't even fucking putting a mask on or anything. I was just like out, just crazy, bro. I was timing myself. I was like, it was like I was playing GTA or something crazy like that. You know? That's how out of my mind I was. I was like completely out of my mind. So I didn't even think. I didn't even put two together. Like, oh, I could actually get caught for this. I didn't even think that way. So the following day, when they did catch me, I'm like driving down Cardiff. Actually, I'm driving down Regent, and I make a right on Cardiff. For anybody that's familiar with the Palms area, I make a right on Cardiff towards Venice. And I look behind me in my rear view, and I got like 7 cop cars following me out of nowhere. And that's when it hit me. I'm like, oh shit. Oh shit. I've been robbing people in my car. Like they found like all I had to do was trace my license plate.
Wow. So you were so out of your mind. You were in your own car thinking you were just going to fly through life.
Yeah. That's how I lived every day, bro. I never gave a fuck. Like, I didn't stop and think too much about what I was doing. You know, so.
And that's due to the drugs.
Due to the drugs and just like that, and then just feeling like I was untouchable, you know? Like, just this weird feeling of like I could do whatever the hell I want. And, yeah, man, I wasn't trying to be careful at all. I wasn't trying to be slick. I was just out to do what I was gonna do and didn't think about it.
So let's rewind a little. Mm-hmm. So when you were doing all those robberies, none of your homies or none of your family members were like, if they did know of it, were they like, yo, you need to pump your brakes, like you're moving too fast out here?
Nobody knew, man. Only like one other homie knew that I was doing this. And he was with me for a few of them. But even after he saw how crazy I was, he kind of like was like, all right, I'm out of here. And I just kept doing it on my own.
So you're a Lone Ranger.
I was a Lone Ranger that goes, yeah.
So go back into that day where you see these cop cars behind you on Venice Boulevard.
So it was like a, nice palm sunny day. It was like 10 a.m. or something. I was getting ready to go hang out with this chick. I'm thinking, yeah, now I got some money, like we can go get a nice sack. You know what I mean? Enjoy the fruits of my labor. You know, this is how sick it was. You know what I mean? I'm keeping it real right now, you know? I'm like, I hop in my car. I'm driving away, literally like 2 blocks from my house, bro. I hit a left on Regent, and then I'm hitting a right on Cardiff. As soon as I'm turning right on Cardiff, I look at my rear view, and I just see a line of cop cars following me, bro. Like, it was surreal. I was just like, what the fuck? So I'm driving down Cardiff, and they immediately just like bum rush me and do they pull me over, their whole tactical shit. They all jump out with these like assault rifles and like stand in tactical positions behind their door, like if I was like some crazy like shooter, you know? But I guess that's what they had to do because I was like robbing people. They didn't know if I had a real gun or a fake gun. So they yell at me like, get the fuck down. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm like trying to play like I don't know what's going on, you know? Even though I do, but in my head, I'm like, damn, this is crazier than, it's still very like, it was like a dream. I'm like, oh shit. And they're like ordering, put your hands behind, the whole shit, the whole walk through, it made me get down on my knees. Like, like if I was some crazy shooter. And anyway, they arrest me, and I guess I left that fake BB gun in my car too. So all the evidence they needed was in the damn car, you know. It was just like I wasn't being careful at all, and I remember just thinking to myself like, the fuck is happening right now? Like, I couldn't believe it, you know what I mean? And even then, it didn't register until they took me to the police station and started interrogating me and told me what I was facing and how they, like, you know, they was telling me I was facing 25 years and all this shit, that this is it, I better tell them what happened.
So what's that experience like when you get down there? Did they immediately tell you what you were there for, or did they just have you sit it out first?
They made me sit it out a little bit, and then they sent the detective in there, and he's like, kid, you just like scaring the shit out of me. Like, you're done. Your life is done. This is a slam dunk case. You did all these robberies. You're facing 25 years plus. The only way for you to save yourself right now is for you to tell me exactly what you did and why, and like all this stuff. And they're like recording. And I knew like enough from watching fucking shows and stuff that I'm not supposed to really talk, you know? So I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you know, I'm just like, I don't know. That's all I kept saying, I don't know. But when I heard him say you're facing 25 to life or 25 years plus.
He said 25 to life or
yeah,
25 years plus?
He said 25 to life. And then he said 25. So they were throwing back and forth, more than 25 years, 25 to life. He was trying to scare the shit out of me. In court, they didn't actually say 20.
Pacific Division?
No,
LAPD?
this was West LA Division. They took me right there on Santa Monica Boulevard, right there off of like near Purdue. Yeah, they're scaring the shit out of me. And as soon as I heard 25 to life or 25, anything with 20, like, I didn't know what the hell. I thought I was gonna get a slap in the wrist if I got caught for this. I didn't know the implications of my actions. Had no idea about the law. I didn't know robbery was such a serious crime. You know, especially since I'm doing it with a BB gun. I'm thinking like, whatever, if I get caught, I'm gonna get some more probation like I did when I got caught tagging. So they're throwing all these numbers at me, and I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? So immediately my brain goes to survival mode, and I'm like, I'm gonna escape from the station.
What?
I was like, I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I'm like, I gotta bounce. Somehow or other, I was like, the first chance I get, I'm making a run for it. That was my mind. And I did. So they walked me out to the parking lot. They had a female officer escort me to the vehicle where they were gonna put me in the vehicle and take me to county, right? This is after the interrogation. I'm already spooked in my mind. I'm already like MacGyvering, how am I gonna get out of here? So she goes to open the car door to put me in the back seat. She lets go of me for a split second, and I just book it out of the parking lot. And I'm running down those streets, and I'm like trying to make it to a friend's house because he lived like a few blocks away from there. So I'm hitting these alleys and I'm booking out. Mind you, I still have my handcuffs. I'm like handcuffed, and I'm running in my socks because I slid out of my shoes. You know, they take your laces from your shoes when you get arrested. So I just jumped out of my shoes and I started running. And then I look back and I have like the whole fucking station chasing me on foot. And I get a good lead on them. Like, I was able to hit this alley, take my time, take like a few steps back and try to jump over this wall without them even coming to the alley. But the wall is like 6 foot high, and I thought I was Superman, so I tried to jump over it, and instead of jumping over it, I just like knocked my own wind out because it hit me in the ribs. So then I just kind of roll under a car, and then they come and they grab me and they start whooping my ass. The first one there is a female officer, and she's like, motherfucker. Starts wailing on me like a dude, bro, and just starts like giving it to me. And they all follow suit. And then obviously they later said that I hit them, and like that's how that went down. So they gave me a assault on an officer as well, but that's like a later story. But that was them covering up for letting me run off, because that was a mistake on her part. She was supposed to have me secured. So she said that I headbutted her. And she later on showed up to court with a big old makeup job, like she had a welt on her eyebrow or something.
So you didn't touch her?
I didn't touch her. I remember clearly. I just literally, she let go of me for a split second, and I just turned and ran.
Yeah, there's certain people that will say, if you run from an officer, you deserve to get beat. I don't understand that, but there's certain people that might watch this and that are like heavy believers of crime and punishment. Punishment of every crime. We need to punish people harder. You know what I mean? You deserve what you got for trying to run.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people that say that?
I say, yeah, you deserve what you get. I agree with that philosophy. Everything I got, I deserved.
So you feel you deserve to get beat for running?
Not for running. I'm sure I did something to deserve that beating. Maybe it wasn't necessarily with the cops, but I have hurt people in the past. So I did deserve to get my ass whooped some way or another.
Instant karma, you say?
Yeah, or not necessarily instant, but karma. Because instant karma would be like, if I hit her, now I deserve to get my ass whooped. But I didn't touch her. All I did was run. But I did deserve to get my ass whooped because I have hurt people. So things happen to you not necessarily in sequential order, like instantly karma. Like, you might not make sense of why you're getting your ass beat just for running, but you did deserve that beating because it happened to you. I believe everything you get, you deserve, because you're constantly creating your reality from your actions. So anyway, but to those people, I would say, yeah, it makes sense. But you have to, if you're saying that strictly for running, I deserve to get my ass beat, I don't think so. I feel like it's a natural instinct for a human to try to run when he's trapped.
It's a survival instinct.
It's a survival instinct, yeah. I'm sure 80% of people would run if they told them what they told me, that I was going to do 25 years, that my life was done. I'm like, oh, I need to run. Like, that's the only thing I could do. Another thought would be like, oh, I'm going to grab the cop's gun and shoot these fools. That's a different level. But I was just like, I'm going to get out of here.
So what takes place after that? They put hands on you.
They put hands on me. They took me back to the station, or they brought a car and put me in the car, and they drove me to county jail. And actually, they first took me to this spot in Ventura just for a couple nights, and then they took me to LA County Jail. I don't know if because it was overflowed or whatever, but they took me to county, and from there, it was all hell, because that was a whole nother experience in the county jail for me.
So you had never been to county.
Never been to county. Never been to county. Never been to real court.
Never been to juvenile hall.
Never been to juvenile.
Camp.
Nothing. This is my first time in jail.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I'm facing fucking supposedly 25 years. In my head, because that's what the detective told me. This is before I even saw a judge. This is what they told me, and this is why I ran. So I'm already thinking fuck, I'm fucked, I'm done.
What was that experience for people that have never been to LA County Jail? What was your experience walking in there?
Oh man, I just remember.
Did it smell like dandelions and roses?
Quite the opposite. More like fucking dandruff and fucking, rosacea. Nah, dude, it was fucking horrible, bro. It smelled like shit in there. It's like you're walking into the pits of hell. Literally, that's what it felt like. You just, as soon as you get in there, you just feel this drop in energy, and it's like this negative energy that permeates the whole place. You know what I mean? Even within the staff. everybody's in this like dark mode, you know, just everything changes immediately and you feel it right as soon as you walk in. So I remember just thinking like, damn, this must be hell on earth right here, you know.
That's interesting that you described it like that, because most people don't describe it. They just either say, oh, you're in there, it smells like shit, you're in there with bums, you're in there with... You described it on a level that most people don't describe it on an energy, spiritual, you know,
yeah,
metaphysical.
yeah, because I
So you were very in tune with that.
I was in tune. Even though I hadn't really studied it, I was in tune with energies because I was already kind of like I already had experiences before getting locked up where a different realm of his existence opened up to me, and like I saw, like I've had experience with spirits before that, and like so I was in touch with a different metaphysical reality already that I knew existed. Actually, now that we're talking about it, when I did have that experience with that metaphysical reality, it was a few weeks before I got locked up, and a few weeks when I had that experience, I made a promise to my higher self and my higher power that I would quit doing drugs. And I stayed sober for a couple weeks, and then the first day I did drugs was the day I did all the robberies, and then the next day I was locked up. So it's like I was getting like I made a promise, didn't keep it, and immediately got the repercussions, you know? That's how I kind of viewed it, even to this day.
So what goes on after
County?
your Twin Towers? What was your Twin Towers experience? Where were you at? Westside, Twin Towers?
I was everywhere, bro. I was in Men's Central Jail for a minute. And then, I got so many stories to tell about how crazy it was, but it was hard for me because when I got locked up, I had an afro. It was literally like, that was my style at the moment. I had a big ass afro. I was doing hip hop. I was into graffiti. And that shit didn't vibe well with the people that I had to run with. I had to run with the Southsiders when I got locked up. And they're constantly telling me, they're already hating on me for...
All right, for those that don't know what you're talking about, what are you talking about?
So when you hit the county jail, you have to, even the staff, the deputies ask you, who do you run with? And when they ask you that, it means you have to select a group to be a part of, right? So if you're white, you're gonna run with the whites, which is called the Woods in county jail. If you're a Mexican from Mexico, and you're gonna run with the Paisas, with the Mexicans. If you're a Chicano or Latino or like me, I'm half Mexican, half Salvadorian, raised in LA, I have to run with the Southsiders, which is the southern gangs of California. Even if you're not a gang member, that's just who you run with because those are the people that are most like you, right? So
and what if you're black or Asian?
If you're black, you run with the blacks. If you're Asian, there's an Asian card too that you run with.
Just for people that
So it's just like pretty much boils down to race.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything is segregated by race in jail and in prison. So I had to run with the Southsiders, and it was tough for me because one, I was already like, fuck the rules. I was already trying to go against the grain with everything in my life. Secondly, I had an afro. So I had fools tell me, who do you think you are? You think you're black, huh? Like, you need a shit. Like, they literally tried to make me cut my hair so many times and I didn't want to. And then another thing, I had love for hip-hop. I would rhyme any chance I got, So I was constantly getting into trouble. And I was getting DP'd like every fucking other day in there.
By who?
By the Southsiders, by the people I was running with, because I was...
Oh, so you were rolling with
I was running with Southsiders, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went in there, I ran with the Southsiders, and I was getting disciplined because I would always constantly break the rules.
What rules?
Like sharing food with blacks, talking with blacks. The main one was I would rap with the blacks. So every so often, I think it was Friday or Saturday nights, I can't remember because it's been so long. The blacks would do this thing where they would beat on the tables and make beats, and the whole tier, anybody that could rap would rap as a beat was going, and then everybody would take turns. I remember one night I was just like, I'm gonna spit some shit, even though the guys in my cell were like, nah, don't do it, bro, you're gonna get in trouble, you know. And I was just like, man, this is what I do. Like, I love the rhyme. Like, so I just went up to the fucking bars and started rhyming to the beat. And they took offense. The brothers loved it. Like, you know what I mean? They were like, who the fuck is that fool spitting over there? You know, some Southsider rapping to our shit. Like, some of them got a little, like, offended because I was, like, spitting, like, battle rap type shit. But they weren't really tripping. They were just surprised mainly. But also, the main thing was, now I'm in deep shit with my people, you know, with the people I was running with, because I wasn't supposed to be doing shit like that. And that happened a few times. I still did it. Like, after like the first time I got disciplined, I still did it again.
So what's discipline for people?
Disciplined is they jump you pretty much. They send 2 guys into your cell and they beat your ass, you know. And so I got my ass beat like 3 times by the same dudes in there. Cause it was just like the same 2 guys would come in and jump me. So after that went on for a while, they moved me to a different location, and in that location, one of the guys gave me advice. He's like, bro, you're not gonna be able to beat your case. I told him all the details of my case, and he suggested that I try playing the crazy role. You know? So I did. When I went to court one day, I tried acting like I was crazy. So then,
what did you do to exhibit?
I just started yelling and like saying crazy shit, and then I think I might have expressed some suicidal ideations, you know, because that's mainly what triggers him. Like, oh, maybe he is crazy. So somebody told me to do that, and I did. So then they put me into the Twin Towers, where they had like all the fucking crazy fools, you know, where all the people taking meds and all this shit.
What's the craziest thing that happened to you?
Oh, some fool tried to kill me in there. Like I have a big ass scar on my face and my hands. So like, yeah, after they moved me to the Twin Towers, I remember a couple of days went by, and I didn't know where I was exactly. I was just like, you know, living, trying to get by. And I remember one day I was sitting playing cards.
What do you mean you don't remember where you're at?
I just didn't know like exactly where. Like, I knew where I was. I knew I was in jail. I knew I was in the Twin Towers, but I didn't really grasp it. I was surrounded by like crazy. Like, I was in like a module with fools that are like taking meds and like, you know what I mean?
J-Cats.
Yeah, so-called J-Cats. A lot of them were just playing the part, you know? I came to find out later, but there was actually real ones in there. So anyway, I remember I'm sitting there playing.
People that are clinically insane.
Yeah, I guess you would call them that, yeah. And I remember sitting there playing. I was playing cards with this dude. I think he was from Nine Deuce, or he might have been from Bishop. The politics were a lot lighter in there, so I was like playing cards with blacks and shit like that, which is a big no-no, you know. But I didn't give a fuck, and there was only like a few Southsiders in that pod. It was mainly blacks, and I had made friends with a dude from Nine Deuce Squads, and so I would play cards with them and shit like that. So I remember playing cards with this dude, and I'm sitting there, and like we're playing, and then something tells me to like, I guess it's the look I saw on the guy across the table from me. He just kind of looked up immediately, so I immediately, like, I felt like something was behind me. So I just kind of like tuck and block like this. And then I feel somebody just kind of like gaffle me up and like scratch me or just like rough me up like from behind. And then I get up and I'm like, what's cracking? And I square up and it's like one of the same fools that I had been getting DP'd by. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how is this fool in here now, you know? And anyway, I square up and we're about to square off, and then I look at everybody and everybody's just like, oh shit. And then I look down, I'm like, why is everybody so surprised? And I just see blood everywhere. And I'm just like leaking everywhere. I didn't even know what the hell happened to me yet. But I'm just like, oh, I'm bleeding profusely right now. But I'm in an intense situation right now, so I gotta defend myself. I didn't even think about it. But then as I'm swinging, I see this fool and he's holding like a little fucking axe. He's got like a toothbrush with a bunch of blades tied to it, and he's swinging it at me, and I'm like trying to hit him, and he cuts my hands all over. And my little homie from 9 Deuce Watts was taking a shit in one of the cells in the pod in Twin Towers, and this fool didn't even wipe his ass. He just jumped up and rushed him. Mind you, the fool that attacked me was a Southsider, right? And he didn't think anybody was gonna have my back in there because there was only like 3-4 Southsiders in that pod. And so when the little homie from 9 Deuce Watts rushed him, all the blacks got on him. And they whooped his ass, and like they had to escort him out. So he had no idea. He thought he was just gonna have a freebie on me, you know? And so, yeah, he tried to, I don't know if he tried to cut my neck or what, but I tucked. I'm thinking he was trying to cut my neck. He was trying to take me out.
Why did you continue this defiant behavior? Why didn't you just roll with the rules and regulations of your car? Like,
I tried, dude. I did, but I was just pissed, bro. I was so angry. I was like angry at the situation, angry at these fools, and I already had it in me that I didn't really like that shit. Like, I always like thought like I was always of the mind of, it might have been just from hanging with these other cats that like put me on game and knowledge about like how shit works. But I'm always like, all right, we're the same people. Why are we killing each other over street fucking names and falling into this mentality of gangs and like basically just feeding into the mouth of the beast and being ignorant and pretty much playing the role they want us to play, which is being an idiot and killing each other. You know what I mean? That's how I viewed gangs and all of them. You know what I mean? It was this weird mentality of like, you fools are fucking idiots. You know what I mean? And I don't necessarily feel that way now, but at that point, like, that's how I viewed being in gang life. And plus, they didn't like me as a tagger, so I didn't like them back. It was almost like self-sabotage. You know what I mean? Like weird self-torture, knowing I was about to like get in trouble or like get beat down or whatever it might have been. It was like this weird fucking just like, yeah, self-destructive attitude I had.
yeah, most people would have just rolled with the rules and
Yeah.
regulations and gone with the flow. But
Yeah. I mean, I learned to do that later, but I had to learn the hard way, you know? I think, yeah, I was just really, yeah, I didn't like the fact that they try to label me as like trying to be black, and like they hated on me for being a tagger and all this shit, you know? I don't know. It was weird.
so what happened after that?
Well, after that incident, they stitched me up and fucking. I continued fighting my case, and they offered me 6 years with half, but I had to turn in the homie that was with me for a few of the robberies.
So during this time in jail, you're still rolling with Southside after that?
Yeah, I'm still. I mean, I had no choice.
And you never received word on why it happened?
No.
Or
I had
if
no
you had
idea.
a green light on it?
No, but now that I'm thinking about it, I probably did. You know. So.
Yeah, that's a pretty
You know, I
tough
don't know if it was
situation to be
necessarily.
mentally.
I don't know if it was necessarily like green light, like take them out, or like just like take care of them, like stab them, remove them. You know what I mean? Do something to him. You know what I mean? Which is a different form of green light, but green light generally means like go ahead and take them out. You know, and I think it was that mixed with that same dude that was disciplining me. I had gotten the best of him in one of the scuffles, and he was pissed off at me for that. So I think it was just a thing of like, all right, this fool's like just, just a bad look for the car at this point. It's like keep getting him out of here, you know. So anyway,
So then going into, you said they offered you a 6-year deal.
So yeah, the best deal on the table up till now was 15 years, right? So it's either I accept 15 years or I take it to trial. But then out of nowhere, they came up to me and they're like, hey, we know one of the witnesses reported there was somebody else with you. If you can turn him in, basically we'll give you 6 years with half.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I didn't think about it. You know what I mean? Because like it's my life. You know what I mean? As hard as I thought I was in G code and fucking street code, I seriously thought about it for a hot second, but I'm like, nah, I can't do it. You know? So
why did you say you
I
couldn't do it? Because there's a lot of people that would have easily done it.
One, he was a good friend of mine. Two, I knew that if I did that, I wouldn't have survived. You know what I mean? In prison.
What do you mean?
I would have been labeled a rat, and I probably would have been killed. You know? Or I would have had a PC up or something like that, and I didn't want to do any of that. You know? And I didn't want to have to live in that fear. But mainly because it was my homie, you know? So... And I knew that if I turned him in, they probably would have given him more time than me, you know? And like a weird switch. So I just like decided to say no, and I kept trying to fight it, and they finally came out to me and they're like, all right, well, the best deal we can give you now is 12 years, 8 months, but you have to take 2 strikes. So that's what I did. And like, I couldn't afford a lawyer, so they had a public state-appointed attorney. And he told me, he's like, yeah, this is the best thing you're going to get. Just take it. And they talked to my family, and my family was like, all right, man, just take it.
2 strikes with how many years?
12 years, 8 months. So...
And how many, this was for one robbery?
14 armed robberies and assault on an officer is what they gave me. I had to plead guilty to all of those.
So you had 14 counts of armed robbery.
Mm-hmm. That's what they...
And an assault on an officer that you said never took place.
Mm-mm.
This was when you ran from
This is when I ran from them, yeah.
At the West LA station.
Yeah. Yeah, so they said they could have given me more or whatever, but their logic behind the 2 strikes was 1 for the robberies and 1 for assault on the officer. And even though it was my first time ever being locked up, and I was on drugs, and they knew this shit, and I didn't have any priors, you know. But during that time, they were just railroading fools, and they were making examples. And there was a new court that had just opened up, LAX court, so they were just giving out crazy sentences left and right. So I took that deal, you know.